escaping out of it except by Jesus Christ. You remember when Paul said the law was our schoolmaster. And what that implies, and we don't see this anymore because we've dumbed down and softened down and common cored our schools to such an extent that no child gets left behind and no child ever gets really punished. But you talk to your grandparents about the old days in that one-room schoolhouse, and that schoolmaster had a yardstick about this long. Or excuse me, those of you from California and the rest of the world, a meter stick. Had a yardstick about that long, and when you got out of line, you got the yardstick. You got a cane across your backside. You got a rod on you is what you got. No apologies whatsoever. And parents were all for it. They said, Mrs. Schoolmarm, if my child has done something they shouldn't have, you got my permission to wear them out. That's what the law being the schoolmaster is. It is meant to be stone and unchangeable. And I was thinking about this the other day after church. Sweetie Pie and I and the boys was headed up to a restaurant. Lindsay and Antonio was all going to go out to eat. And just the thought just hit me, and I don't know why I hit upon this. But the law was written in stone. I'm going to look a verse up here. The law was written in stone, and it was done so for a reason. That is, it was etched in stone, front and back, because stone is adamant. It is hard. It is concrete. It is static. Stone doesn't bend. It doesn't twist. It's not malleable like clay. You can't make it into whatever you want it to be. It's etched in stone. We use that phrase to this day. It's etched in stone, Jack. You can't change it. God intended because here's what would happen. If God had written the commandments on clay, then people would change it and bend it and move it and say, well, it probably doesn't really mean this. And we would never be saved. God was as hard as a rock in the Old Testament and wouldn't move. The Bible talks about how, now I got to look something else up too. Let me add something here. Here we go. I'm using the software. Without mercy. It'll find it. Go ahead. Here we go. Hebrews 10:28. He that despised Moses' law died without mercy under 2 or 3 witnesses. No mercy in the law. Only justice and only judgment. Those who are trying to lead you to believe that God's grace is in the law, or that you go back to the law in the time of grace, doesn't work. There was no mercy. You broke the law, you were to die without mercy. That was the stone law. But here's what Paul said. I was just thinking about this, and it just really blessed my heart. In 2 Corinthians chapter 3, he said, do we begin again to commend ourselves, or need we, as some others, epistles of commendation to you, or letters of commendation from you? Ye are our epistle, written in our hearts, known and read of all men. For as much as ye are manifestly declared to be the epistle of Christ, ministered by us. In other words, we are the Bible. We are the New Testament. We are the epistle of Jesus Christ, the entire New Testament, ministered by us, written not with ink, but with the Spirit of the living God, not in tables of stone, which are adamant and cannot move, but in fleshy tables of what? The heart. You see, the heart. Do you remember that story of Abigail and Nabal? Nabal, her wicked, cruel, authority husband. And when her husband woke up from his wine, and he heard that that David was going to come kill him, and Abigail said, "No, I won't let him do it." The Bible says his heart turned to stone and was that way for 10 days. You know, and I could chase a rabbit down here, because Abigail then was married to the law. She was married to the 10 Commandments, and he died. Now she's free to marry somebody else. Go read Romans chapter 7. A beautiful, beautiful story there. But anyway, God in the Old Testament wouldn't budge. It was written in stone. God in the New Testament, it's written in fleshy tables of the heart, and it's soft. And God's heart, though once turned against us, now has turned for us. If God be for us, who can be against us? Christ died for us. And I just thought that was the contrast between the old covenant, written in stone, won't budge, won't move. Now we have the new covenant, and God says, I changed my mind. I'm not going to send you to hell. I'm going to love you and give you eternal life. I absolutely, absolutely love that. This just came in to me. Michelle just sent this at 12:21 p.m. John Hagee sides with the gay rights movement in Texas on city ordinance. First, dual covenant theology, now this. And by the way, if you don't know what that means, dual covenant theology is the idea that God saves the Jews differently than he does us. And it's the idea that in the future, God is going to save Israel. And I believe God's going to save Israel. But he's going to save them by restoring Old Testament law keeping. That's a joke. God's going to save them by works. And I've had run-ins recently with some people who have the skewed idea that although you and I are saved without any works of the law, by grace alone through faith. Well, actually, some of these people don't even believe in the faith part. Salvation by grace alone. God's firstborn, Israel, the people he really loves, he's going to make them work and earn it. That's a lie, people. It's an absolute lie. But anyway, John Hagee. Pastor John Hagee holds to some curious doctrines. For example, he believed the Jews don't need Jesus because they have the Abrahamic covenant mentioned in Genesis 12. But he does believe that all non-Jews need Jesus to get saved. This heresy is known as dual covenant theology, which he lamely attempts to deny he teaches. But this video of his own handmade commercial shows otherwise. Now we read that he has changed his stance on a pro-LGBT, which is a large bacon and tomato sandwich, I think it is. LGBT. Isn't that what that is? If you go to the diner and you say, yeah, I want a large bacon and tomato sandwich, they would write LGBT. LGBT, burn it! Lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgendered ordinance being proposed by the San Antonio City Council. Television evangelist and Pastor John Hagee on Sunday, this is from mysanantonio.com, told congregants in a national and international audience watching live that he no longer opposes a proposed ordinance that seeks to protect the rights of gays, lesbians, bisexuals, and transgendered people in San Antonio. He read a statement during his Cornerstone Church's 2 morning worship services Sunday, reflecting confidence in the latest version of the ordinance, which is expected to go before the City Council on September 5th. And he claimed credit for a key wording change that ended his opposition to the measure. At issue was a clause, a Santa clause? At issue was a clause that would have allowed the council to consider whether candidates for city boards and commissions had discriminated against gay and transgender people in word or deed, which opponents saw as an invitation to consider their socially conservative views on homosexuality. The proposal's author, Councilman Diego Bernal, removed that language July 25th. All of the previous language that infringed upon the freedom of speech, the freedom of exercise of religion, the ability for people of faith to serve on city council has been expunged, Hagee told the Cornerstone audience, prompting a standing ovation at the first Sunday service. Many of the other socially conservative local pastors and Christian business owners who raised objections to the original proposal remain opposed to the revised version. Revised version, that's funny. Revised version. The ordinance's advocates contend it is an overdue update to protect a vulnerable class of people without negating the rights of others. It would add, here we go, gender identity. Gender identity. In other words, not the plumbing and the fixtures that you were born with, but the plumbing and the fixtures that you would like to have or that you pretend you have. Gender identity and sexual orientation to the city's current anti-discrimination policy. And we've talked about this before. Here we go. You're going to go, ladies, you're going to go into a restroom in San Antonio, Texas. And some guy's going to walk in there. And normally what you would do, you would call the police and say, there's a pervert in the ladies' room. Can't do that now. Because he will have a right, guaranteed by the force of the law, to go into your bathroom whenever he wants to. Because he identifies himself with being a woman. And Hagee endorsed it. Hagee said he got the city attorney and Bernal to agree to the revisions in writing when they met Tuesday. Though Bernal said he had made the revisions almost 2 weeks before that meeting, he said Sunday that the agreement and meeting with Hagee underscored the benefits of respectful dialogue. I was happy to share the changes with the pastor and his son, Bernal said Sunday, referring to Matthew Hagee, the executive pastor at Cornerstone, who was also the executive pastor. The ability to speak face-to-face about what the ordinance does and doesn't do has proven to me time and time again to be the most effective method. Actually, preaching the gospel and preaching the condemnation of the law is the best dialogue to have. I'm not interested in compromising on anything. I'm not. And shame on John Hagee. Shame on you for going along with this. I'm not your judge, but I know the judge. He ain't gonna like it. Oh, let's see here. What else can I do here? Boys, disturbing prayer to Obama causes outrage. Sorry, read that wrong. You are good, Barack Obama. You are great. You are good. Let's see here. A shocking video featuring and several of you have seen this. Apparently it's a video on YouTube. I haven't seen the video. Shocking video featuring, because I don't like shocking things. Just being honest with you. You get electrocuted almost to death, and you just stay away from, Pastor Mike, you need to see this. It will shock you. So I'm sorry. No, I'm not gonna touch that button ever again. Shocking video featuring a child seemingly praying to the commander-in-chief is sparking outrage